South Africans will vote on Wednesday to decide whether their country will take its most significant political step since the moment 30 years ago when it brought down apartheid and achieved democracy. This national election will not be as momentous as the one South Africa held in 1994. Few have been. Then, Nelson Mandela led the African National Conference, or the ANC party, to victory as black South Africans, who were the majority, were allowed to vote for the first time. It officially ended a half-century of racial segregation under apartheid, a violently enforced system that attracted the world's outrage and hundreds of years of white minority rule. But while the ANC still governs in 2024, it is amid rising discontent caused largely by high levels of unemployment and poverty. That could result in a majority of South Africans choosing another party this week over the one that led them to freedom. The possible repercussions are complex because while several polls have the ANC support at less than 50%, suggesting it is in danger of losing its majority for the first time, no opposition party has risen to a position to overtake it. The ANC is still widely expected to be the largest party, well ahead of an increasing number of opposition movements that are splitting the disaffected vote. But without an outright majority, the ANC would likely have to strike agreements or coalitions with others to remain in government and re-elect President Cyril Ramaphosa. That would end its political dominance of post-apartheid South Africa and herald a new era where the ANC co-governs. The ANC won 6 successive national elections, starting with the one that made Mandela the first black president in 1994. But from a high of gaining nearly 70% of vote 20 years ago, it has experienced a steady decline in support while South Africa grapples with deep socio-economic problems, some of which are left over from apartheid. The ANC has also been criticized for the corruption scandals that have plagued it and for not tackling the country's violent crime problem. The issue that stands out, though, is joblessness and the resulting poverty. South Africa's official unemployment rate is ranked the world's worst at 32%, and it's even higher at 45% for young people aged between 15 and 34. That sits at odds with the country's status as the most advanced on the African continent. The World Bank estimates more than half of South Africans live below the poverty line. At the ANC's last major rally this weekend, Cyril Ramaphosa said it still represents the aspirations of South Africa's people and promised to prioritize job programs and extend social support for the millions that rely on government grants. The ANC asserts it is the only party that can effectively govern South Africa, and while it's undoubtedly facing its biggest electoral challenge, analysts point out that it has the most effective grassroots campaigning machine and has traditional support among the older South Africans and those in rural areas, voices that are generally given less airtime. The possibility of the ANC clinging onto its majority has not been ruled out. The election will take place in one day, with nearly 28 million people registered to vote across the nation's 9 provinces. They will decide the makeup of the national parliament, but also the provincial legislatures. More than 50 parties are registered to contest the national election, a record number, and independent candidates have been allowed to stand for the first time. South Africans don't vote directly for their president, but rather for parties. Those parties get seats in parliament according to their share of the national vote, and lawmakers elect the president, who has always been from the ANC because of its parliamentary majority. Just over 80% of South Africans are black, but it's a multiracial country with significant number of people who are white or of Indian heritage or with biracial ethnicity. Mandela referred to South Africa as a rainbow nation as he attempted to harness that diversity into a new unity after apartheid. But 3 decades later, poverty still disproportionately affects the black majority. While they disagree strongly on policy and are in no way united, the main opposition parties repeat one theme, that the ANC has failed to live up to its 1994 promise. when it swept to victory under the slogan, "A better life for all." The ANC's fading allure may be seen most clearly among young people, the South Africans in that 15 to 34 age bracket who didn't experience apartheid or have no memory of it, and many of whom are now voters. This election could give voice to a new generation who are aware of apartheid and the ANC's role in defeating it through stories told by their parents and grandparents, but don't see how it helps them 3 decades later. Do tell us what you think about this video in the comment section, and for more news updates, subscribe to India Today.